Today we're going to be talking about the most underappreciated topic in finance, budgeting. It's often overlooked because it's very boring, it's tedious, and a lot of people feel it's unnecessary, but that's all very untrue. This was the first topic I learned when it came to finance, and arguably the most important because I still use it every single time I need to reach any type of financial or fiscal goal. Today I'm going to be teaching you how to create the proper budget for you. First, let me show you what my first budget was at 19 years old. That's when it was created, and I was a server at the time at a restaurant. I was making about $6,000. So how I created this budget is I had to look at a few different things. What were my fixed expenses? What was my income? What were my goals? And what were the next steps I needed to take? So, expenses. Income, we've got it. It's already $6,000. Expenses, at the time I was living apart from my mother. I had a roommate. I was paying about $800 a month in rent. I was paying about $600 in food, and I had $150 car insurance. My car was a hand-me-down, so I didn't have a loan. I had no student debt. I had worked my way through college, whatever odd jobs I could pick up, Dunkin' Donuts, salad place, anything I could find to make a little bit of extra money, and then I started sneaker reselling. $800 for rent with a roommate wasn't bad at the time, so that leaves us at about $1,550 per month for expenses, which is about, I would say, 25% of everything I was earning. Those are my fixed expenses. Could I lower food? Of course. But at the time, I was working about 14 hours a day, 6 days a week. A very unhealthy lifestyle. I don't recommend that to anybody, but that's just a situation that I was in at the time. I could control this and lower this a bit more, but that wasn't aligned with my goals. My goals were I wanted to be rich. I didn't grow up with very much, and I wanted to go and travel. That is still my main goal, and I like traveling. That's the only reason I even like money, because it's going to get me to where I want to be, which is to see the world, try new foods, and honestly, do things that I want to do. So, I have expenses and income already done. Next were my goals. What were my goals? I want to travel, and I don't want to backpack across Europe. I want to travel in relative luxury. I want to be in a nice hotel in a safe area, flying ideally a nice airline with a nice seat. So to do that, you need money. So what were the next steps I had to take? Well, the next steps I had to take were I had to figure out how to fill in the rest. 25% is already taken, and since I'm trying to make more money and not save more money, I need to figure out how I'm going to budget to make more money. So, my first step would be how much money do I want to put in a savings account? I decided at the time that about 20% was good. 20% was safe. It gave me some security in case anything happened, and I was happy with that. And that wasn't my main goal. My main objective was to make more. So what else did I do? For about 30% of that, I put into investments. What did 19-year-old me invest in at the time? Stocks, ETFs, index funds, anything I thought that was a good investment. Was it good at the time? It was about 2021, so pretty much everything was a good investment at that time, looking back now. But at the time, I kind of just put money in there with pretty low expectations. The rest of that money sat in my checkings account. That was for actual emergencies, and I didn't necessarily have to use that money, but I liked seeing it there. It was good to have in case anything happened, and mainly in case I had any other surprise expenses. Notice how there's no personal expenses here, and that's because I didn't really have any time to spend anything on myself. So I didn't have any type of me budget. Would I suggest this budget to anybody else? Probably not. You don't want to work 14 hours a day, 6 days a week. That's not what you should be looking for. But for me, this made sense at the time because I just wanted to make more money. I eventually was able to, so now I have a completely different budget. But we're going to talk about how you should create your budget, because that's more important. First, what is your income? How much money do you make? Next, what are your expenses? And when I say expenses, I don't mean your Netflix subscription. I mean, what are you paying in rent? What are you paying for your car? What are you paying for insurance? What are you paying for your phone bill? And then what are you paying for food every month? What is that number? You need to figure out both of these first so you can continue to make a good budget. Now, do you have any debt? Debt is important. Are you paying off a house currently? If you're paying off a house, continue to pay off that house. That's going to go into your expenses. Do you have credit card debt? If you have credit card debt, that's a problem. You want to have no high interest debt. Debt is okay in itself, but high interest debt is what's not okay. That's going to eviscerate your budget every single month. You need to focus on paying that off. How do you gauge what a high interest debt is? Anything above 6%. And 6% is only okay as long as it's a longer term asset such as a house or a car. I don't recommend financing a car, but if you have to, you should. Next, what are your goals? Your goals, your budget needs to be aligned with your goals. Your goals are the most important thing in this. Do you want to be rich? Okay, you're going to have an income heavy budget. You're going to be focused on increasing that income as high as possible. Do you want to have a stable, secure future and you like your job now and life now? Then you're going to be focusing on your expenses and your debt. How can you lower those as much as you can? Do you want just to build up a nice little nest egg, or are you young and you want to just kind of spend your money and go party? There's nothing wrong with that. All you need to do is make sure you don't accrue a lot of this, a lot of debt, and you need to make sure you keep your income and expense at about an even level. I'm going to show you 3 different ways 3 different people are going to budget. Way number 1 is going to be the aggressive budget. The aggressive budget is going to be for someone like I was at 19. You want to keep your expenses about 30% or lower. That's going to include your housing, your food, and your transportation. Is that audacious? Yes. Is it impossible? Absolutely not. If you're ambitious and you think this is going to be too challenging for you to achieve, then you should change your goals. This is just what needs to happen. You need to have a low expense ratio. Do you have debt? Pay it off. Unless it's a house, pay off your debt. Your debt should be clear. This is the aggressive investor budget. Aggressive budget. Next would be 20% savings. That's a good savings basis. That's not going to be your main focus. This is going to be for emergency. This is going to go into a high yield savings account. One that's FDIC insured. That just means that the government insures that money. FDIC insured banks include Discover, Amex, other banks. Anything that offers an online high interest, high yield savings account. Next, you're going to be doing 30% in investments. Now, what should you invest in? I'm not here to tell you that. You need to believe in something. What I believed in at the time was business and stocks. So that's what I invested in. I continued to grow my business and I invested in stocks. If you believe crypto is the future, invest in crypto. If you believe real estate's the only way because you've seen that stupid statistic a million times that 90% of millionaires are millionaires, because of real estate, then do real estate. I've done all 3 of those. My personal favorite's business because I have the most control over that. But I've done real estate and I've also traded stocks. But you're going to need to have a lot invested. Now, you don't need to pick right away, but you do need to figure out where this money needs to go. And until you figure that out, you're going to keep it in your high yield savings with the rest of your costs. Next, the rest of your life, the rest of your 10% is going to be spent on whatever you could think of, whatever you want it to be spent on. You should be taking vacations sometimes. You should be, even if they're not lavish, luxurious vacations, you should be taking vacations and you should be buying yourself things that you need. Clothes, shoes, gifts for the people in your life. This is for someone who's aggressively trying to increase their income, because this is the goal. And as this income increases, that doesn't give you an excuse to spend more on housing. That's not the goal. You should be trying to keep this as low as possible. And you should be trying to invest more and more and more. Now, we're going to go look at someone like the passive investor. The passive investor's going to have a completely different way of investing as well. The passive investor is going to try to keep their cost basis of their living at least 40%. You want to lower this if possible, but it's not absolutely necessary. 40% for someone who's in it for the long run is not bad. You can get a house for 40%. If you're renting and you're at 40%, that's a huge red flag. Try to buy a property. Now, do you have debt? I'm still always going to advocate paying off high interest debt. If you have a house, don't focus on paying that off immediately. Pay it off. If you want to accelerate your payments, by all means, but that doesn't give you an excuse to inflate your lifestyle if you do make more money and you're debt free now. Keep this at 40% or lower, ideally. America's average for living expenses is about 58%, which is one of the highest in the world. You want to stay ideally at 40 and below. Next, you want to keep your savings, I would say, at a strong 25%. You want security, you want long-term longevity, you want to make sure your money is safe, right? And again, I'm going to advocate for a high yield savings account. Your money should not be in a big bank savings only because it doesn't accrue any interest. All the money that you have, that you save, is going to deflate as the economy inflates. So you're at 65% here. You have another 35% to spend. What are you going to spend it on? Again, I'm going to advocate maybe 15% investing. Investing doesn't have to be that big of a pie. It doesn't need to be your main goal, but it does need to be somewhat relevant to your life. Because again, it's a hedge against inflation. Whatever you want to invest in it. Invest in what you believe in. Don't let anyone tell you what's a good or bad investment. You need to learn yourself. The rest of the money, you're going to keep it in your checkings account for emergencies, because you don't have a lot of flexibility, nor do you need a lot of flexibility. If you see that this is growing too much, the rest of this money, the rest of the 20% that you have, if you see that you have maybe $30,000 in here, consider putting more into investments, or consider putting more into your high yield savings, or consider paying down your house to lower your expense ratio. You want to try to have as little expense as possible, as well as a good amount of savings rate. But the 20% is going to be for you to vacation, enjoy your life, and do things that require money on a daily basis. So, after looking at all this, this should give you kind of a good idea of what you should be doing. Thank you guys for watching. I appreciate everything. And if you liked what you saw, please feel free to subscribe. And give me your suggestions. Am I wrong? Am I an idiot? I'm not sure. You tell me. Thank you.